I'm Adarsh, Principal Correspondent with Express Computer, and I welcome you all again to another exciting and insightful webinar. This is brought to you by Express Computer in association with Infoblox. And the theme for today is Stay Compliant with SEBI's new cybersecurity and cyber resilience framework using DDI and DNS security. So, with the rising digital transformation and advanced technologies coming into the picture, the threat landscape also growing complex and sophisticated. Now, this is a major risk soaring to plague critical industries like the banking and finance sectors. So, in response to this urgency, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, has introduced the Cybersecurity and Cyber Resilience Framework to enforce robust defenses across securities and commodities market in India. The framework aims to provide standards and guidelines for strengthening cyber resilience and maintaining robust cybersecurity for SEBI regulated entities. This framework shall supersede existing SEBI cybersecurity circulars, guidelines, or advisories or any letters. So the CSCRF framework is standard-based and broadly covers the five cyber resiliency goals adopted from the Cyber Crisis Management Plan of CERTIN, which is to anticipate, withstand, contain, recover, and evolve. Now, these cyber resiliency goals have been linked with cybersecurity functions, including governance, identification, protection, detection, response, and recovery. This webinar will draw light on on the obligatory DDI and DNS security guidelines in achieving SEBI's compliance mandate and how DNS security can be your first line of defense in fortifying cybersecurity against emerging threats. So, to share his perspective on the subject, I would have an expert speaker here on the webinar today, and he's Mr. Jiten Pareek, the Senior Solutions Architect for SARC and Infoblox. However, before I hand over the session to our expert speaker and we delve into the tech talks, I would like to take our audience through the house rules first. So this is an audio video webinar which is being broadcasted live and it will be available as an on-demand feature on our website. We will be having poll questions in between of the webinar, so I will encourage our audience to actively participate for the poll questions as the views and your perspectives are of great importance to us. Now, once the speaker is done with his presentation, I will open the floor for the audience questions. And you can use the Q&A tab that's reflecting on your screens to send in your questions, and our speaker will answer them live in this webinar till the time permits. And last but not the least, if in case you face any technical issues, I would recommend you to refresh your browser first. If the issue persists, you can use the same Q&A tab to send in queries to our team, and the team from the backend will definitely help you. So, our speaker of the day, Mr. Jiten Pareek, as a senior solutions architect, is responsible for helping customers automate their core network services, optimize security operations, and secure against advanced threats. He has an enriching experience of over 2 decades in networking, cybersecurity, and emerging technologies. Throughout his career, he has helped many of the largest enterprises like telecom, BFSI, and ITES customers in their digital transformation journey by leveraging cybersecurity as a key technology. So, on this note, I would like to welcome Mr. Jiten Pareek to take the session ahead.
Thank you, Adarsh. Warm welcome. First of all, that sincere, I'm thankful to you for providing and sparing your valuable time to attend this webinar. And I'm really hopeful with this webinar, you shall able to construct your cybersecurity in line with the SEBI's cybersecurity and cyber resiliency framework guidelines. To start with, I'm just reintroducing myself. I'm Jiten Pareek. I'm a senior solutions architect responsible for India and SARC, being with the Infoblox from last more than 12 years. So, just a background of that cyber resiliency, cybersecurity framework, which is got first introduced in 2015, and it has been updated frequently, but that okay, the major transformation has been recently come from the SEBI. Uh, One of the key reason behind that okay, being a growing economy, growing country with the frameworks with the digital economy aim to be a 5 trillion in the coming years, and that these digital transactions, the market, the advisories, as well as the stock exchanges plays a vital role in the growing economies. And with that, we cannot eliminate the cyber risk associated with the digital economy, and these guidelines and the standards will help in strengthening the cybersecurity measures into the Indian security markets and the market regulated entities. They are the with this cybersecurity framework, they are the entities, following entities it has been applicable to, but that can also be in the benchmarking for the other organizations who adopt and create the framework in line to the compliances, in line to the industry where it has been growing on. So the investment funds, self syndicate banks, clearing corporations, collective investment schemes, portfolio manager, mutual funds, stock brokers, stock exchanges, venture capital funds, or the depository participants, they all are considered as an regulated entities which falls under the SEBI's regulatory, and these cybersecurity and cyber resiliency framework are applicable to them. So, in line to that, market infrastructure institution and with the CSCRF framework, the following the regulated entities are constituted as market infrastructure institutions, which are stock exchanges, KYC registration agencies, depositories, qualified registrar and transfer agents, as well as the clearing corporations. So before moving on to that compliances, which can be gathered and can helpful by adopting the DDA and the DNS security, what are the goals for this framework? The goals is to establish the governance risk, the management, we to identify the critical systems and conduct the regular assessments of the systems so that the security can be more proactive, implement the best of the security standards and the measures to obtain the world class certifications like ISOs, detect, establish a monitoring, proactive monitoring in place for the quicker detection and the remediations in the event of any kind of a cyber security risk or cyber threats, withstand and contain, report incidents on time, timely manner so that it can be adopted, the mitigation can be adapted by the other regulated entities, and the response plan can be placed before it can impact to a larger entities, and develop and implement a recovery plan in case the cyber risk, cyber attacks has impacted the organizations because business cannot go on off, as well as with those threats and attacks we can continuously learn to adopt the controls and report the compliances. So learning as well as adoption of a new controls was the one of the key essential part of the cybersecurity framework. This cybersecurity framework, which has been introduced in 2015, first of all, that okay, the earlier framework has to be get adopted and implemented by 1st of January 2025, and this new guidelines and the framework should have been deployed and implemented by the regulated entities by 1st of April 2025. Now, to start with, one of the key section with this is from the in the cybersecurity guidelines and the goals in the section 2, where the goal was anticipate and function to identify the risk. It has clearly mentioned on the guidelines about the risk assessment by the regulated entities in the IT environment shall be done on periodic basis. The risk assessment shall include the comprehensive scenario-based testing for assessing the risk, including both internal and external, related to the cybersecurity. And when we say at the cybersecurity risk, that DNS, which plays a critical role for the any infrastructure because it is the first point of the communication for your any applications, accessibility, payments, transactions, everything, and it will really help the assessment for your internal and external DNS server by conducting the risk assessment for their configuration, the platform, as well as the traffic. To understand the risk associated with your DNS configurations, the DNS platforms, or the traffic which has been associated to be communicated to the bad actors and the threat vectors. And the report will really help you in defining the strategy how to secure your infrastructure from the foundation. Those scenario based testings which has been clearly indicated at the different sessions time frame, and it should conduct the various kind of a test like DDoS, malware and the malicious code, application level attacks. It has specifically mentioned about DNS based attacks both for your internal and the external traffic platform as well as the for the configuration. But if you will find out that all these things like DDoS, malware, the Active Directory attacks, all are associated with the DNS as well. Because without DNS, nothing can be accessed, network can't work, applications can't be accessed, and the Active Directory won't work. So DNS is being a foundational platform, has been associated, and these guidelines has already made put a focus onto the DNS testing for their applications as well as the DNS traffic assessment. In the scenario based testing, various kind of attacks like is DNS spoofing, flood, encoding attack, how with the service unavailability, how we can quickly restore the DNS, monitor the DNS request and response, which means what kind of a traffic has been getting originated from the DNS, or the responses coming back by the DNS is being monitored. All IOCs as the DNS filtering can be adopted. Malware attacks, whether ransomware, spyware, application level attacks, where the DNS is everywhere being associated, that SEBI is being focused into their cybersecurity guidelines. Now, on the another section, when we say withstand and contain, where the cyber security function, how to respond to those attacks and the threats, in the section 5, point number A, it has mentioned that all cybersecurity incidents shall be reported in timely manner through the SEBI incident reporting portal, as well as the another guidelines which states where you cannot find the root cause analysis, a forensic analysis shall be undertaken for the detailed investigation of the cybersecurity risk. Considering that DNS plays a very critical role in the early detection as well as the faster threat response, as an uh, kind of a research of almost approximately 4 days before any other tool detects, the DNS can provide you the incidents which can be happen to your infrastructure as well as the growing network complexities which require real-time monitoring of the infrastructure, DNS DHCP based monitoring, centralized visibility. It will help in providing the automation, deep threat intel ecosystem integrations, as well as the defense against the DNS threats. So, because DNS plays a critical role, rather than the security can be reactive, by identify the threats, if you have a DNS security in place, you can better and proactively monitor the threats, and you can adopt a mitigation plan much ahead before by any other tool can detect, and it can effectively block 60% of the new threats and attacks before any ransomware actor can even use them at once. By sharing those threat intel data, because DNS is core foundation, any traffic which hits to the application from inside or outside will hit to your DNS. That means you can have the entire visibility of the lateral movement of your users or from the outside threat actor, which can be shared to other security tools. The reason here is by sharing those data and the threat intelligence, you can better do the forensic analysis as well as the detailed investigation when the root cause analysis are inconclusive. Because with the adoption of a DNS, DHCP, IP address management, and the DNS security, you can have the deep dive visibility or elementary view of identification and the compromised device, which is essential when we go for a forensic analysis. By sharing those data like malicious IP, enforcement, user details to the other security solutions like SIM, SOAR, it will help you in the faster remediation, faster analysis of a threats, and the detailed investigations of the threats if it has been happened to your organization. It will help in improving your outcomes. It will improve your security operations efforts. It will avoid your productivity losses by the DNS threats, as well as the reduction into the security related endpoint downtimes. By adopting the DNS security solution, you can fastly get the return of your investment by 243%, as well as you can see these solutions have a payback within the lesser than the 6-month time frame. Here is the poll question. I would strongly suggest that, okay, you can just provide your opinion if that how many organization has been faced the outages due to the DNS, because that will actually relate why the DNS is so much important for the organizations to protect and start your cybersecurity risks, adoption of the compliance, adoption, how we can secure our DNS to better control our compliance and the security to the entire cybersecurity framework. It has been a three options to you: the 68%, 82%, or the 45%. And post your poll, the opinion can be made, can be shown here. But it will give you the very bright idea. So 49% say that, okay, 68%, 80, around 18% said 82%, and 33% of the audience has said about 45. The, the right data is 82%. 82% of the organizations has faced the application outage due to the DNS, because the common reason is when you access any application and the services, the first communication goes to the DNS. And DNS is a very currently that, okay, less monitored, less hardened, and less secure protocol. And attacker knows that, okay, if we are able to bring down your DNS, we can make a direct impact, economical or to the business impact to your organization. And that's why the SEBI cybersecurity guidelines has strongly emphasized to monitor your DNS. In the section PRAA with the various points from 2A, 4C, 4E, in the cyber resiliency goal anticipate and the function to protect, which has a function. You have to see that, okay, there is a specific function can protect, and that's why they have mentioned that adequate control shall be deployed to address virus, malware, ransomware attacks on the servers and IT systems. These control may include host network application based IPs, customized kernel of Linux, antivirus, malwares, as well as regulated entities shall deploy web and the email filters onto the network. These UIs shall be configured to scan known bad domains. When domain, that means DNS, sources, addresses, block those before receiving or downloading messages, filter out emails of malicious indicators. The regulated entities shall implement DNS filtering services specifically focused onto that to ensure the clean DNS traffic to be allowed in the environment. Regulated entities shall follow zero trust security model in such a way that access from within or outside the regulated entities to their critical system by default denied. Regulated entities shall block malicious. Again, they have mentioned domains shall IP, which means DNS. Latest malicious domains, IPs, CNC, DNS. So in multiple form, they have mentioned about domain or to the DNS because they knew that, okay, why critical is the DNS. And that is the reason it has been recommended to adopt a DNS security both for your internal and the external DNS. But the solution should have a capability to integrate with your existing security operations center security tools, because a comprehensive DNS detection and the response solution detects the entire DNS activity that other solution miss and stop before the attacks or before they can occur with hunted and pre-campaign, which happened during the time of a COVID. It's still happening to disrupt the attacker supply chains. Intelligent security integrations and automation reduce your manual effort, and the with AI, which is the critical part of the any security solutions, focused on what matters most. So, because when people or when any organization, any user access the application, first query goes to the DNS, and that is called that okay, first line of a defense. If the DNS is intelligent enough, having a security in place, it will automatically detect that malicious domains which match to the list of a malicious domains, IP, CNC, ransomware, anything. It can block the request, as well as it will share those data to your security systems to take the further remediatory actions as well as the detailed investigations. It will also protect your other security solution because the attack has been blocked before it is reaches to your perimeter security solutions. Now, zero day DNS. So, zero trust model cannot complete with the zero day DNS. What the zero trust model said? Don't trust on any. Whatever come, consider as in malicious. Same applies to DNS because first communication reach to the DNS. Deploy zero day DNS protection. DNS shall be capable enough to protect and consider all the requests as in malicious, and then do an analysis before respond them and ensure that is a clean traffic, which will help you in getting the compliance of DNS filtering, so that clean DNS communication should happen onto that environment. It will also do a AI driven technologies to detect, which has been mentioned, any data which can be downloaded. DNS is a critical solution or to the protocol which not only can infiltrate but also exfiltrate the data, and that happen the point of the communication, the exchanges, the data for the users, the KYC has been leaked using the DNS, ransomware has been injected using the DNS communication. And that's why it is SEBI has emphasized to monitor your all the DNS by leveraging the AI driven technologies like AI ML, which can analyze your DNS queries and requests. It will help you in protecting any kind of a DNS based data exfiltration or to the infiltration, and provide a proactive approach in mitigating those attacks, as well as the timely respond back to the regulated entities or to the regulatory board if you have found any of those newly observed attacks found in your environment. Zero attackers tend to register the similar kind of a domains, which is a very common attack surface nowadays to fear the phishing attacks. As well, the zero day DNS feature will block those attacks from the first seen domain registered within the minutes. That means a proactive, a timely respond to those threats, which will help you in complying to those cybersecurity framework, not only that filter it out the DNS traffic, also the timely respond to those attacks. Monitor and block your all the DNS logs as well as the responses and other targeted attacks which happen into that near real time. It has also mentioned the various approaches for the protection, and this is what the DNS protection do. It not only it will protect by the threat intelligence, it will also help in protecting by the signature based attacks, as well as it will use the behavior detection, because all these comprise to provide you an intelligent DNS and the DNS security solution where it can have a variety of a security surface, as well as the techniques to mitigate those attacks that will not only help you in mitigating and proactive responses, ensure the cybersecurity compliances are in place, providing a better visibility control for your entire security environment. The next is the cyber resiliency goal called anticipate, and again the cybersecurity function called protect, which falls into the section PRAA and specifically into the point PRAAS8, where it says in the network security management that regulated entities shall maintain up-to-date centralized inventory of authorized devices and authorized devices enabling the regulated entities network. The second point, it advised that to ensure all the log sources is being identified with the respective logs are being collected and the indicative list of a types of a log data to be collected by the regulated entities, which maybe it falls system logs, application, network, database, security, performance. When we say centralized inventory, which means the SEBI has focused or stress onto the visibility, because a generic term, you can only protect what you can see, which means if you don't have a visibility what is being connected to your environment, you cannot protect that. Network availability begins with your visibility by adopting the IP address management solution to identify the accurate status of your network assets, like which IP, subnets, VLANs. Unlike the manual spreadsheets, it automatically detects what has been connected to your environment, who and where. Who has been connected to the environment, where it has been connected to the environment, and when they have connected to that environment. It applies not only to your endpoint, it applies to your servers, network, endpoint, everything, IT, OT device, because any device which requires a communication to internet or internet requires IP. And when they say IP, the IP address management solution can identify the IPs or the devices which has been connected to your environment. And it will provide you the single pane of a glass, which means centralized inventory. So this is the job of an IP address management solution. It will provide 360-degree of the visibility of an IP address of the infrastructure by collecting metadata automatically from the various sources. It will IPAM data includes all IP, MAC, hostname, username, MAC addresses, port, and if you will see the cyber security, the analysis or the detailed investigation, when you do the detailed investigation, it starts from asking who did this, from where it has been happened, and when it has been happened. The cybersecurity investigation starts by identifying the assets who generated the threats. And if you have that clear visibility, it will reduce your service disruption, interruption. It will improve your cybersecurity, the threat response, as well as it will provide you the clear cut visibility who, when, and where. And this is the cyber framework the SEBI has been stressed on to have that clear cut visibility of your IT assets and the devices which has been connected to your environment. The unified IP management visibility provides the IP address clear cut indication of MAC, what operating system, fingerprinting, the where it has been connected, attached devices, ports, details, all minute details, and what kind of it is. It is a lease IPs, it is a DNS records, it is a IT OT devices. It will provide the automatic detection of the usernames as well as the operating system. Why this important? Because if you have that visibility, it the system can identify the rough devices detection, any kind of a duplicacy, any device which you cannot foresee that okay that comply to your network environment. Those sometimes you may not be aware about those devices are connected, which can later lead to a cybersecurity risk. So it is very much important that you should have the clear cut visibility of what IPs is been connected and who's been using that IP, because this is where your cyber risk assessment or cyber detail investigation starts from. Now consider, if you have those data can be integrated to your other security tools by leveraging those metadata with your IPs and the detail elementaries. If that context, the network and security events with their context means that DNS data, the user information, the identification of endpoints, if it has been shared with the same SOAR vulnerability scanning net, how quickly you can respond to those threats, how quickly you adopt the resiliency plan, how you can quickly adopt the responses to the cyber threat. If user has been doing any kind of a mitigation the threats, it can immediately your the organization can be immediately protecting by eliminating that security, eliminating the device from the network. And this is the first point where when the risk of a security and the response plan has been conducted to eliminate the device who's been generating those attacks. This has been applicable both for your on premises as well as the off premises users. In continuation with the cyber resiliency goals in anticipate and the cybersecurity function called protect, again the section PRAA and subsection of PRAA S15, it has clearly indicated the guidelines with regard to the endpoint security, guidance of the usage of Active Directory servers, as well as the securing for their domain controllers. Like solution like EPP, EDR, XDR, anti-malware shall be implemented to detect threats and the attacks on the endpoint and enable immediate responses. The regulated entity shall undertake the penetration testing activity for the Active Directory domain controller abuse attacks. Weakness shall be remediated at topmost priority. Secure domain controllers. Threat actors often targeted and use the domain controllers as the staging point to spread ransomware. Regulated entities shall ensure no unnecessary software shall be installed on domain controllers. It has emphasized and stressed on two things. One, endpoint security, where the endpoint security is essential both for internal on premises and off premises, so that irrespective the assets or the user is, it should be well protected before any threats can happen from that machine or the machine get compromised. The another thing which has been stressed on the Active Directory. Why so? Because more than 90% of the Fortune 1000 or the organizations are using Active Directory, and almost the people who has joined, everybody has been using the Active Directory infrastructure, Microsoft. But do we know that Active Directory has been very closely associated with the DNS? Without DNS, Active Directory can't work. So if you want to bring down the Active Directory, you do not need to do an attack onto the Active Directory. You just do an attack onto the Active Directory based DNS infrastructure. The Active Directory become unoperational. If you are able to use the weakness of the Active Directory DNS. People who are using the Microsoft, we all know the challenges about the Microsoft based DNS and the DHCP. They have made so many changes onto the Active Directory platform, but from the since the inception of the Active Directory, they have not made any modifications of the Active Directory based DNS or the DHCP. It is having very limited discovery capabilities. There is no mechanism to avoid IP conflict. AD replication you cannot control. Site services access, speed, file process, impact. It is having a very complex architecture for the deployment and the maintenance. There is no mechanism to assess the DNS configuration, changes, verification, or any audit tools. In fact, Microsoft DNS cannot share the DNS query and the response logging. So one of the key point with regard to the logs, which I have showcased into the in the earlier deck, that okay, regulated entities should maintain all the system performance logs. Microsoft DNS cannot comply to those regulatory the compliances. It does not provide centralized management, and the time and the effort in rectifying the errors are way more than the anticipated. These are the vulnerabilities. We all are aware who's been using the Microsoft about the bi-weekly deployment of the patches and how it has been impacting next working day. I hope everybody has aware and everybody has faced those challenges in their duration. In 2019, there are the 742 vulnerabilities. Windows Server, as of 2023, that okay, in 2022, 422, and 2023, 390 vulnerability CVEs has been identified. Every bi-weekly CVE protection or the patch has to be get implemented. But on the another way, how it has been impacting, there it is in fact that okay, people are furious about that. So it is first of all important from the perspective of the endpoint security. We have to look at that, okay, irrespective the user accessing the application, whether it is connected to your on premises infrastructure or it is being connected to your off premises, user is user, it is your responsibility. The assets they are using is the part of your organization. You should have the complete visibility what has been accessed, whether they are connect when they are connecting to a corporate network, or the similar security policies shall be adopted when they are on off premises. The COVID kind of situations we cannot avoid, nothing in our control. So we should have the clear visibility and the protection in place. And I think so to start with, DNS is the best way to protect the on and the off premises DNS and off premises user. When they are on premises, it is agentless. When they are off premises, it is agent based. But the common security policy should be in place. The attacks will be get much faster remediated before it has been getting impacting to your organization, or you can get the complete visibility if the user is off premises conducting, or their machine has been trying to communicate with any malicious. You are well aware when this machine comes back to the network, it can create a nuisance as well as the threat activity in my environment. So you can better mitigate, you can have a better ready plans to mitigate those risks. Again, because DNS again plays a vital and the critical role in accessing, it is well proactive. So as I mentioned, if you have a AD, but the you have a secure DNS which is compatible with your Active Directory DNS, you can having a much better control to protect your Active Directory DNS servers, because majority of the time when the attack happen onto the AD, it is not on AD, it is onto the AD DNS, because the ransomware, and it has been happened to the large organization where the AD based DNS compromise for the ransomware attacks, and the entire 15,000 servers has to be get stopped, and the ransomware has actually been transmitted to 400,000 users. That happened to that organizations, that happened to your all the business customers as well. They have faced those challenges, ransomware injected through the DNS into that Microsoft based AD, which has impacted the entire organization. So use it is recommended to use the DNS security or the secure DNS solution, which will help you in mitigating the attacks and the weakness of your Active Directory, because Active Directory is been completely dependent onto the DNS. So one of the key question, again, the poll and your opinion we would like before we will proceed. What do you think that, okay, what is the average time the organization take to identify the data breach? And this may be a very interesting for you when you get to know the answer, because it is not that organization get to know immediately that data breach happen, despite we are knowing that okay, the organization, the financial institutions are using best of a breed solutions, the DLPs and act, but there is a lack in that, and that is why the delay in identifying the data breaches. There is a specific reasons behind that, that okay, why those breaches is identified very late, and where the impact has already been made to those organizations. So you have a three options with you: 69 days, 108 days, 197 days. We would like to quickly see your opinion, how you think, what is in your view, uh, what is that poll results? Can somebody show? Okay, so for 34% said 69 days, 40% said 108 days, and the least has said 197 days, but the least is the right one. The average time organization take to identify the data breach is 197 days. Why it is so? Because now the section PRDS in the cyber resiliency goal anticipate and the protect has clearly mentioned in point C, regulated entity shall implement the measures to prevent unauthorized access, copying, transmission of a data. And the recommendation here is the DNS data exfiltration protection using and the DNS hardening. The reason being that okay, nowadays the data has been getting exfiltrated and infiltrated in the form of a DNS queries and the responses. And if you the you know that Active Directory DNS or the legacy system does not provide hardening OS, which led to a maximizing the exposures of threats. Okay, data breaches. And that is the reason if the data breach has been happening outside to your HTTPS protocol, it is very hard to identify in the form of a DNS on or by the Active Directory systems. Active Directory holds all the users' data. By implementing the DNS security or secure DNS solution, which is having a capability to analyze the queries. Again, the 0-day DNS comes into the picture. Consider all the queries as malicious. Do all correlation with regard to the domain IP reputation feeds, signature based detection, as well as analyze the query based on to the AIML. Mitigate your DNS exfiltration or infiltration. This 197 days data breach identification reduced, okay, by I think so that okay, within the day we can identify, because anything which hits to your organization or anything going outside from your organization will hit to the DNS first. If the queries incorporating your users data like date of birth or the card expiry, KYC details of your users, it can be identified at the DNS level itself, because this DNS inspection cannot be made by the DLP. No DLP solution do the DNS deep inspection. And that is the reason this channel has been widely adopted by the attackers to slowly take out the data from the organization or bring the ransomware inside to your organization to impact. And we strongly suggest to having a first query inspection. 0-day attacks generated by the commercial spyware vendors targeting specific victims or the financial organizations, and almost 75% organizations face phishing attacks. I'll tell you that okay, 92% of the malware communication happen through the DNS protocol, and that is the reason the breaches nowadays has been happening more frequently despite the adoption of a greater security solutions. AI/ML based behavior methods help in calculating the randomness, avoiding the false positive. It will analyze your DNS queries. It does not necessarily that okay, every time they use the standard mechanism to exfiltrate the data. A new domain can be generated within a minute. And leveraging the AI/ML mechanism, we can better respond to those threats or the data exfiltration, data leakages from your organizations. Again, those 0 days, which will help you in protecting from the new domains, lookalike domains. Okay, threat insight will help. Zero help in improving your zero trust architecture that blocks from the threats from the first seen domains within the minutes, 2 hours before the use. So you can understand reducing from 197 days to within the minutes and hours are far better. It will provide entire visibility and block spear phishing and other targeted attacks. This is what the DNS security can do for to adhere to the cyber security and cyber risk guidelines. The another section within the same anticipate and protect goal is they mention in PRIP that you should ensure IT and OT IS infrastructure is secure by design. All REs shall use application directory whitelisting on all the assets and avoid unauthorized softwares blocked from the installation. It recommendations to use integrated DNS, DHCP, IPAM, and the DNS security because use of a DDI and the DNS security solution, as I mentioned earlier, any device which has been connected to the network requires IP. So DNS, DHCP, IPAM is mandatory for any device, whomsoever it is. And when you have that visibility and your DNS is secured, you can even plan to protect the devices where you cannot install the agents like EPP, EDR, XDR agents. You can install in IoT or OT devices. And when they are trying to communicate with the malicious services, it is easy to visualize and easy to protect them. Otherwise, it is very hard to investigate that which IT or the IoT or the OT device has conducted that detection, which can lead to a cybersecurity risk. So the DNS securities is actually help you irrespective the devices, whether it is a agentless or the agent based. You can protect all kind of a device in the environment, all kind of a devices which connected to the network. And that is the beauty of the DNS security. And when you have the integrated DDI solutions, which is a foundation like DNS, DHCP, IPAM, you can have the entire visibility and control with regard to ITOT, cloud apps, containers, ZTNA, IoT devices, because it will do a automatic discovery. It will help you in remote site survivability, automated containers. Your services can be spin up, provide the network identity, and help in faster provisioning. The automation. So the three things which has been mentioned and which is in line to your cybersecurity, like visibility, automation, and control. The integrated DDI solution with the DNS security covers all the aspect. If I will include one more point in this, visibility, automation, control, and the better protection I can add on. They have clearly mentioned unauthorized access of the software or the applications. Using the DNS security, you can help application risk, mitigate the application risk. You can identify and approve the application discovery to ensure that only the authorized applications or the softwares can be allowed to be get connected to your environment with the complete proactive visibility, your control to your high risk application, and faster time to remediation and control. Identify the devices. It is very hard when it comes to the IT or IoT devices, and the integrated DDI will help. When it comes to the security or included with the DNS security, this is what you can get, and this is what you need when you adopted any kind of a cyber security, cyber risk compliances, that what IP, where it has been connected, who's been using, and what kind of attacks and threats has been initiated, what is the risk level associated with that. If you have those data, your cyber risk compliance or the cyber risk response is much faster, much ahead than the any other tool. The another cyber resiliency goal within the section anticipate and protect is hardening of the hardware and software. And if we see and compare with the Microsoft based environments, we cannot follow those guidelines because there is no mechanism of a hardening. Every 2 weeks, the patch will get introduced. Adopt a solution which provides the hardened software or the hardware systems to lower your risk. And this is where it has been recommended to use the enterprise grade DDI and the DNS security solution. Reason being, if it has been the solution is free from any kind of a vulnerabilities, and if nobody can having a root access, you are much safer. You are well protected to mitigate any kind of a view attacks which is associated with the vulnerabilities, because most of the attacks when they initiated, they first check, assess the vulnerabilities associated with your application systems or the platforms. In the cyber resiliency goal, anticipate and function detect, the section DECM and specific section S4 about talks about stressed about the remote network access that only allows the trusted client machines, continuous security monitoring to facilitate and timely detect the unauthorized malicious activities, as well as the capacity management so that you can be well prepared for any kind of a capacity introduction. You should have the know that okay, what is my capacity which has been get utilized. And this is where the enterprise grade DDI provides. It will provide you the hardened OS, which has been free from any kind of a software which is need to be get installed, randomization, socket binding, denial of a services, malformed packet, and hardened IP stack for the detection and prevention, as well as the communication among the various components. It is happen to a secure communication so that they cannot we can avoid the man in the middle attacks. The again the ecosystem which emphasize in continuous security monitoring is to share the network and the security events. If you have a system, again stress on the DNS is DNS will provide you the all kind of a live logs as well as the live uh, queries, responses, what has been happening to your infrastructure. If you can share your logs, if you are having a system which has been capable enough for sharing those data, your analysis is much faster, your remediation is much faster, and that is the reason SEBI guidelines has emphasized more on that. Okay, continuous security monitoring. Continuous security monitoring can happen only when your systems, your infrastructure solutions will share those accessibility data to your security solutions. This is help in incident responses because now you will have the complete visibility that IP addresses, device user network locations. You can immediately know what device is being get compromised so that you can remediately significantly faster with the accurate data and the points. You know with the DNS security the scope of a threat exposure so that you can control your system, timely communicate to the regulatory entities or the regulatory the SEBI, as well as you can adopt a plan to mitigate those attacks into that future as well. So the DNS DHCP IPM along with the DNS security will actually help in responding fast as well as providing a quick remediations as well as the creating a plan to remediate those threats from your environment. When you have the discovery, the IPAM, you can actually know about the capacity. What are the networks, how it is being used, how my DNS has been responding, how is new inactive devices attached to my environment, what are the conflicts, what are the new ranges has been get involved, what IP, when did appear, okay, how many IPs has been get used, what is my system performance like DNS queries performance, how if there is any kind of a search, we can immediately get to know, which means DNS, DHCP, IPM will provide the single source of a truth. Before your application capacity get enhanced, if that you can get those data much faster, because before the application, the user will connect to the application, it will first send the query to the DNS. If your DNS queries has been surging, that means that you have a surge in your application accessibility. So with those, you can actually do a capacity planning much faster before it can reach to the ball point or the saturation point where you have to bring that plan immediately and enhance the capacity. So you will be well prepared to enhance the capacity and plan for that. So that's it from the today's webinar. I'll just give you a quick summary of the Infoblox. The Infoblox, we are the 25-year-old organization. We got introduced in 1999, and since the year 2000, we are providing the DNS, DHCP IP address management solution. In 2013, since 2013, we are providing the DNS security. So we have a more than 1 decade of the experience into the DNS security. We have a DNA of the DNS. Our chief architect, which is Mr. Cricket Liu, is the founding member of the DNS protocol. What we provide the integrated DDI, DNS, DHCP IP address management solution. DDI, the term itself has been introduced by the Infoblox, and it has been adapted by the Gartner in 2019, which will help in providing stable network operation, rapid responses to change, even it has been increasingly complex in the environments. Provide you the visibility, control, unified management, security, and the automation. Also, we do both. Not only we do the DDI, we also provide the DNS security. We are the leader into the DNS security to provide early malware and the ransomware detection, protect organizations from their DNS data exfiltration and prevention, zero-day DNS approach, DNS-centric threat intelligence, real-time analysis of your DNS traffic, AI-driven Security Operations Center insights to help and improve the SOC infrastructure and the ecosystem, DDoS protection for your DNS, as well as the easy integration almost with the 92 security vendors with the ready integration platforms. Infoblox, we have our global team, security team headed by Dr. Renee Burton, which is having a 22-year-old veteran of NSA. We have a 20 plus researcher in 8 time zones, 5 countries to continuously monitor the threats as well as evolve or provide the curated data and the feeds. We have a specialized in discovery of DNS based threats and deep expertise in DNS data sciences using AI ML, intelligence analysis, and the reverse engineering. We have a weekly 3 to 4 million indicators which produce DNS, the threat intelligence for our DNS security Infoblox threat defense solutions. That's with thank you, and we are open for any questions and answers questions you have.
Thanks, Jiten. That has been, it was indeed a very insightful presentation. Thank you. It was quite illustrative, and I'm pretty sure our audience must have gotten a lot of key takeaways from the presentation that you've given. It gave us basically insight and allowed us to take a peek on the range of offerings from Infoblox that can handhold enterprise to comply with the latest, set of SEBI's CSCRF guidelines and regulations. So thank you for that presentation. But before we head to the Q&A session, there's a small feedback for our audience. So we'll just stick to let's say 2 or 3 minutes for the feedback. So I request our audience to please, fill in the feedback form. We just have 2 3 minutes, and then we'll directly dive into the Q&A session. Your feedback is really important to us, so I will encourage all of the audience members who joined us to please participate in the same. And looking at the response, Jiten, if you would have seen the kind of question that we have received, uh, you know, it's quite a lot of questions that we have received from the audience, the numbers that we had. I think it was an interesting presentation. People were really interested, and it showed that audience has a good response. So we are hoping for a good feedback as well. Let's see what they have to, give as a feedback to this presentation.
Thank you. Thanks everyone who has responded. And first of all, thanks everyone who has joined this webinar. It has been quite impressive to see the attendees here. And sincere thankful to everyone who has spared this valuable time for to uh, attend those webinar. We are looking for a more feedback from you so that we can continuously that improve into that if anything has been missed during those presentations.
So I'd request my teams if I can move ahead with the Q&A session.
Yeah.
Okay, so as promised to our audience before, when we started that I'll open the floor for the Q&A, and we have received a lot of questions for you to answer, Jitin. But looking at the time that we are already at, I would request you to be brief while answering the questions. So the first question that I have is, what are other compliance frameworks discuss DNS security and why it is important for cybersecurity compliance? So over to
Okay.
you, Jitin.
So first of all, if you will see from in the digital infrastructure, from application, email, and the domain is the foundation. Okay. So the malicious actors target majorly onto the DNS infrastructure to cripple the organization services. Okay. So that's why by understanding how the DNS security fits to your compliance program, you can create a much more comprehensive approach to monitoring as well as documentation to achieve the audit objectives and create a resiliency plan. Just to provide that criticality, the National Institute of Standard and Technology NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0 has categorically mentioned about the DNS. So they have already mentioned about the situations and the create a resiliency plan to avoid single point of failure in systems and the infrastructure. Okay, high availability components. So they have specifically about mentioned about the DNS monitorings as well that you should incorporate in your cybersecurity framework. Similarly, the PCI DSS, which is used for the payment card industry 4.0, they have explained that DNS queries and responses are the key data sources used by the network defenders. So the incident response should include the DNS security, as well as they have stressed upon to creating a framework which help in strengthening your DNS security as well. So not only those standards, but the international organization, the ISOs, which we'll talk about, they have also mentioned in their 27002 framework under the 8.5 logging, the log analysis, which should include the monitoring of your DNS. And they have mentioned the checking DNS logs to identify outbound network connection to the malicious servers. So because the DNS is the foundation of the any infrastructure, and that is the reason that okay, all those cybersecurity frameworks now emphasize and stress much more onto the foundation security before moving ahead to the perimeter security or to the application security. It has been essential for any organization when they create a cyber security or the SOC operations, they have to start from the foundational approach.
Thanks, Zain. It was quite elaborate the way you said. I think people would have understood the answer about that. Now, before I head to the next question, I would request all the audience members, if in case due to the paucity of time, if any of your questions remain unanswered, You can see Jiten's ID is flashing on your screens. You can share your question on that email ID, and Jiten, we can get back to you with the answer. Now, moving to the next question from the audience. Jiten, Sanjeev Gupta is asking, how will these guidelines apply to financial organizations that are headquartered outside India but may have operations in India?
The guidelines which has been introduced by the SEBI. So whatever the even though the organizations, the financial institutions which has been outside to the India, but they have operations in India, they actually have to adhere both of the guidelines. For one, which has been introduced by the SEBI, because you have operations in India, and the entity which holds those operation in India has to be adhered to those guidelines. But the in the other countries there are the much more stringent guidelines, so they also have to follow the both the guidelines, so they have a much more I think so the work to do, because not only they can comply with the in country guidelines, but the they also have to adhere to the guidelines which is being adopted and used by the headquarters where the organization headquarters are based out of. So it is actually is the you have to follow the both the guidelines in country and outside country both.
I hope that answers your question to our dear audience and Mr. Sanjeev Gupta. And now, due to the paucity of time, I'll be taking the last question of this webinar. So, my question is to Jiten. The question is, most of the firewall vendors are providing DNS security, and
Mhm.
how is it different in case of Infoblox DNS security? So, can you
Correct.
draw some light on that?
Yes. So yes, most of the time we get those questions that we have a DNS security, but the way it has been emphasized, okay, so do not see the DNS security, the guidelines just to have the feature in place. Okay. So currently, if you will see the guidelines which has been mentioned by the CSCRF or the regulatory board, is to adopt a solution which actually can help in defining the framework. First of all, the firewall vendors will have the limited understanding of the DNS as a protocol. Okay. Second thing, when it comes to the DNS security, they majorly covers first either the volumetric, or maybe they have a one approach, some way they have the feeds or the intelligence based. But when we see the guidelines, it is having stressed upon the monitoring of a DNS, the mon I can say the security of a platform, the DNS, as well as the inception of a DNS security from the perspective of the AIML, the using the evolving technologies which shall not be completely dependent onto the feed and the data, and they should be having a capability for inspecting or analyzing data exfiltration or the infiltration. It will help in improving your zero trust architecture, and for those you need a specialized DNS security solution which will having a core functionality of a DNS, because DNS security shall better run onto the DNS rather than onto the firewall. Firewall is just providing a kind of a feature, but DNS is actually a platform which shall provide you the security. So you have to look at on the other way around, that okay, to secure the DNS and introduce the capability of the DNS security within the DNS, because there your queries are landing and responded back.
Thanks, Jitin. Thank you for those wonderful answers. And that's all the time that we had for today's webinar. But I'm really thankful to all the audience who have been very participative. They have shown a lot of interest. And Jitin, to you for such a wonderful and insightful presentation. And again, to the audience members, some of your questions which have not been answered, you can share those questions on the ID which was flashing during the Q&A session time, and the team from Infoblox will get back to you with appropriate answers. So thank you all again for joining us for this presentation. See you in our future webinars. Thank you very much.